This Sportz Blitz podcast is brought to you by LMG. Grow your business through logo design, paper products, and video production. Visit leemarketing.net to learn more.
Of the Birmingham News as the Prep Sports editor. Jeff, how you doing tonight?
Hey, good, man. It's a great day to be in Birmingham watching some sports, man.
Oh, there's no doubt. Hey, it's always a great day to be in Birmingham watching sports, I think. We always get to see you at the Final 48, obviously, and we get to see you at the Super 6 at Alabama and Auburn. And you've got a pretty good job, Jeff.
My mama tells me all the time, she says, son, I know you went to school, and I know you got a job, but I don't think you work yet. Now some days I do work, like that Super 6 stuff and Final 48, but I love what I do. I think I got the best job in the world, and I bet you do too.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's a ton of fun to do what we do. And, Jeff, we appreciate you being on with us tonight. But one thing I want to talk about, I know you had a big camp this past weekend that you attended, the Nike football training camp. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know, everybody out there, it's kind of like an American Idol type audition tour stop for elite high school football players. And what they do is they put them through a combine setting with agility drills with former college players, really motivated, really animated position leaders and analysts and instructors, and they put them through their paces. And mostly it's a bunch of juniors that think they deserve or on the cusp of a major Saturday offer. Sometimes you get some sophomores that are already walking that path. And this week we had a couple of freshmen. There were some amazing physical freshmen already. A young man out of Central Phoenix City really caught my eye, 6'3", 212. Moves well, and you just see those guys and you think, okay, that kid 2 years from now, that's going to be the new Reuben Foster. That kid's going to be the new Brent Callaway. That guy's going to be the new Marlon Humphrey. Yeah,
there were a lot of great prospects, I know, at that camp, and you have mentioned on aldotcom and with the Birmingham News that this is probably the best year in Birmingham since 2006, right?
Yeah, I only had the chore / privilege / duty of maybe replacing the Bear Bryant of high school football sports writers in this state, and the gentleman Ron Ingram, who's now with the AHSA. And I've been here in Alabama after coming over from Georgia. I've been here in Alabama since the 2008 season. And I did some homework this year because I was like, man, it's not even March yet, and all these SEC guys are around. And I counted it up, and there were already 12 kids from Birmingham. That's just in Jefferson and Shelby County. I'm not even counting Blount, Walker, St. Clair. Just in those two counties, 12 kids already, roughly 11 months before their national signing day, that have at least one SEC offer. Now, Hoover's got 4 of those juniors already. There'll be seniors this fall that have 4 of those SEC offers, but Clay Chalkville's got 2, Shades Valley's got 2, Bessemer City's got 2. Lots of talent. You got to go all the way back to 2006. And on National Signing Day, the Birmingham metro area produced 13 guys, but that was on a National Signing Day. I think it tells you 2 things. It tells you, number one, these kids are bigger, faster, stronger, but also they're getting identified and tagged and offered much quicker than they ever did before.
Tell us about Darren Pain, who some people have as the number 1 prospect in the country. I don't think I've seen him anywhere listed lower than, say, 12th, 13th in the country, but he's a 5-star defensive tackle out of Shades Valley. He's got a fantastic teammate in Keith Mixon, too. But talk about Darren Pain. I believe he was at that camp, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was there, and he was kind of the drawing card, the rock star of the event. I think when he met the media, there were probably 15, 20 microphones around him, a couple of cameras, and that's how the recruiting world works these days. But Payne's an interesting prospect. I think of him, I think of 2 or 3 things. Number one, he won't be 17. He's a junior. He won't be 17 until the end of May. And he's putting up like Luke Robinson junior year strength bench press numbers, man. I'm talking about he's got 455, 460 on the bench right now. And he's still 16 years old. I was telling his head coach, maybe he's just give him a Yaris or a Geo Tracker or a Yugo to lift. The kid is so immensely strong. Now, he's about 6'3", he's about 330. He can dunk a basketball, or at least he could about 20 pounds ago. And everybody wants him. It's going to kind of come down to an Alabama-Auburn war, I would think. Texas and Florida State are in the mix, too. But I got to tell you, Payne's stock dipped a little bit this week because he wasn't in great shape. And some people at this camp, some of the elite guys, a kid like Darrell Williams at Bessemer City for one, went up against him 3 reps in a row, and he held his ground, stoned him, got into his face. One analyst said that the lesser-known 3-star who has a Kentucky and Mississippi State offer mentally destroyed him by how he just got in his face with things like, not today, not today, come at me again. They're just good animated stuff, not too chippy, but that's what football's about. It's kind of like a call-out drill. If you're good and you want to beat the man, you got to find somebody with a bigger name or somebody that's just as good, and that's what it was. Good competition, and, Pain, I think he's just an incredible specimen. Plays too high for my book. I know a lot of old-school defensive line coaches that see him, and they say comes off way too high, needs to get lower. Can't live off that brute strength all the time, but he is an amazing prospect to work with. But to me, when I start thinking about the best overall football player prospect in Alabama, I don't have Payne up that high. He's in my top 5, but I think of a guy like Kerryon Johnson, who really impresses me a lot. That's a kid I really like. Lester Cotton, the tackle guard center, whatever he wants to be, a really versatile offensive lineman out of Central Tuscaloosa. Those are two guys in my mind that really stand out as maybe the best 2 players in the state right now.
Yeah, I know Lester Cotton really improved his stock this past weekend, and also Kerryon Johnson. I've had the privilege of calling him a couple of times at the Super 6. He is an absolute phenom. There's no doubt about it. What Birmingham team this year has the most intriguing spring practice game coming up in your mind?
Well, you can't start any Birmingham discussion about intriguing or great or prospect without looking at Hoover. Because, I still say that if Hoover is what they've done is amazing. They've been in the state championship game every year but one this century. And I still think Hoover drove the bus on reclassification. Now, some of my good friends at the AHSA would love to disagree with me on that one, but if my facts are, if my opinions here are that Hoover's the largest school in the state, they should do very well. They do very well. They meet every expectation. But I don't know if people are looking at that and saying Hoover is such a big school with so many more numbers than most of 6A. If they're not winning state, if they're falling short in the quarters or the semis every year, I don't think that's as big of a problem. But then when Hoover keeps competing and doing so well, and again, all credit to that program because they're doing exactly what they're expected to do. They're supposed to hit the bullseye every year, and they do. But I think, to me, Hoover has 3 guys on the defensive side of the ball with SEC offers. To me, one of the stars of that Nike Combine we haven't talked about yet was a young man named Jeremiah Moon. Now, he's a linebacker. Didn't play much for Hoover last year because that was a stacked team. Only had about 22 tackles. But Jeremiah had an offer from Mississippi State before the start of his sophomore season. He's about 6'4". He's about 205. Great enough athlete where he plays baseball on the Hoover JV team. And lots of the analysts I saw and the coaches I talked to think when that young man gets to be a high school senior, he will be among the top 5 linebackers in the country. And if you watch him move and cover with long arms, good technique, already a lot of power and explosion, you can really see that happening.
And Jeff, one final question. The Champions Challenge, those opponents were announced here very recently, and that's always something fun we enjoy going to. We get to call those games as part of the AHSA radio network. And, man, I know there are no Birmingham area teams in there this time, but there's some Montgomery area teams in Stanhope, Elmore, Carver, Montgomery. Opelika's in there. Dadeville from down here in our area is in there, along with Piedmont and finally Spanish Fort. Yeah. I love this lineup.
I like that. I always like that format. The state of Alabama needs more showcase events like that. Maybe they should have mini champions challenges and maybe have them in one at Troy, maybe have one in North Alabama. Maybe they should have one at Jacksonville State. I still think the state is progressing to where we have semifinals there at a site like that, at a regional site, if the money's right and the numbers are right. But I like the concept, especially now with the intrigue of this year where they're playing that 11-week schedule where you have 11 weeks to play 10 games. And now this first game is counting. Spanish Fort game, that game right there with Spanish Fort is going to count with Elmore, Stanhope Elmore. I really like that. And, hey, I really like Spanish Fort a lot. You know, when you talk about who's going to be the new beast in 6A now that Hoover's in 7A, you got to think about Spanish Fort, who keeps winning titles. You got to think about it. Shades Valley, we mentioned earlier, with all those players they have coming back. Clay Chalkville's still there. Florence is still there. Oxford's still there. To me, and a lot of people are just coming to this conclusion, but one of the first things I saw when the new brackets came out and the new classifications came out is like, man, it's going to be awfully hard to figure out who the new 6A champion is or the best team or the team to be. Because really, there's about 5 or 6 programs in there that if you throw them in a bag and pull one out, they're probably going to be just as likely to be considered a favorite as anybody else. And that's going to be the class, I think, year in and year out, that's going to produce the most dramatic playoffs in the new 7A format.
Well, Jeff, thanks so much for being with us. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You're the hardest working man in prep sports here in Alabama, and we appreciate everything you do. If you go to aldotcom, you'll see probably 40 articles a day, it seems like, from you, and they're all fantastic.
Well, when you like what you do, you can pump it out, and I really appreciate that sentiment. It means a lot, especially for all the things we do in this business, but it's a labor of love, and we sure enjoy it. Hey, thank you for what you do, too. You're part of the world. I'm sure the people and your readers and your listeners and people that consume your content surely appreciate what you do, too.
Well, thank you, Jeff. We appreciate it, and we'll have you on again soon because this is one of our favorite topics.
You got it. Anytime. Call me anytime. Glad to be on your show.
Thank you, Jeff. That was Jeff Sentell, the prep editor of the Birmingham News. We'll be back in just a minute with more Sportz Blitz Live.